Extreme Noise Terror were formed in early 1985 in Ipswich, England, originally consisting of dual vocalists Dean Jones and Phil Vane, guitarist Pete Hurley, bassist Jerry Clay and drummer Darren Pig Killer Olley. Prior to Anti, Vane and Hurley had played with Discharge-influenced acts Freestate and Victims of War, whilst Jones had been singing with Raw Noise. Hurley claims that the band name came from an insert for an album by the Dutch band Lärm It featured a bandana ed hardcore kid with extreme noise terror surrounding him. Those three words summed up exactly what we were aiming at. Aside from Discharge, the band cite as early influences Anti Cimex, Rattus and Antisect, another early proponent of the one high one low vocal approach. Ian signed to the small UK-based indie label Manic Ears after a solitary gig supporting Chaos UK. Their first release for the label was a split LP with Chaos UK in 1986, entitled Radioactive Earslaughter. Although there were still musical similarities between the two bands, ENT were already beginning to twist hardcore into what would later become known as grindcore. ENT have, however, expressed misgivings about the use of the term. In 1987, ENT came to the attention of John Peel, on the recommendation of fellow Ipswich group The Stupids. After seeing them live at the Caribbean Centre in Ipswich with his wife and son, Peel offered them their first Peel session for BBC Radio 1, which was released through Strange Fruit. A second Peel session was recorded the following May. During this period, the drum stool was filled by former Napalm Death drummer Mick Harris, although he left soon afterward to form Scorn and was replaced by Tony Stick Dickens. Bassist Clay was replaced by Mark Gardner, and this lineup recorded ENT's debut album A Holocaust in Your Head, which was later voted number 3 in Terrorizer's Essential European Grindcore Albums, who described it as marrying a thick crust punk crunch and vitriolic lyrical assault with the newborn, clattering fury of grindcore. Holocaust followed Napalm's heroic Uppercuts and Haymakers with a Doc Martin in the Ghoulies. The band undertook a headline tour of both Europe and Japan in support of the album. In 1990, Jones and future ENT guitarist Ollie Firesback guested on Raw Noise's Sound of Destruction's single release, and bassist Gardner was replaced by Pete Nash from the band Doom. On their return from Japan, ENT were invited to perform their third Peel session, which was released along with their first as a full-length LP by Strange Fruit. The band then embarked on another European tour, after which they released their second record, Phonophobia, through Vinyl Japan and returned to tour Japan once again. Further radio support from John Peel brought ENT to the attention of Bill Drummond of the KLF. The two acts got in touch and Drummond asked ENT to re-record a version of KLF's hit single 3 AM Eternal with the intention of the band performing live on top of the Pops at Christmas. The BBC, however, felt that the song was inappropriate for broadcast on daytime television and thus refused to air the track, leading to the KLF boycotting the show. The single eventually saw limited edition release through KLF Communications and won Single of the Week from both the NME and Melody Maker. ENT also worked on the abandoned KLF album The Black Room, but when Drummond and KLF co-member Jimmy Cauty announced the band's retirement, they also deleted the recordings. When asked how the collaboration came about, Jones said what actually happened was that Bill heard us on Peel when he was in the bath and got in touch. They had wanted to do rock versions of their songs with Motorhead, but something fell through, so he rang us. The message said it's Bill from the KLF, but I thought they said the Elf, so I didn't take much notice. Later, we got another message saying it was definitely Bill from the KLF and I said fuck off. Extreme Noise Terror continued to tour throughout 1993 and 1994, and underwent further lineup changes. Drummer Dickens left to join Dirt and was replaced by former member Pig Killer. Lee Barrett took over on bass, and Ollie Firesback joined on lead guitar. At the request of Digby Pearson, this lineup signed to Earache in June 1994 and recorded Retro Buttyon, essentially a compilation of re-recorded material from the band's earlier days, which was released in January 1995. The motivation behind this release was due to the band's dissatisfaction with their earlier recordings and saw ENT take a slightly more metal direction, including the addition of some guitar solos. A short UK tour followed by touring in Europe and the US, and a further lineup change occurred with Pig Killer being replaced by former Cradle of Filth drummer William A. Was Sargenson. The lineup changes continued with the departure of founder member Phil Vane, who left to join Napalm Death in late 1996. In an example of trading places, Napalm Death frontman Mark Barney Greenway agreed to join Anti during the recording of their next album Damage 381. Further lineup changes occurred in 1999 with Vane once again departing to be replaced by Adam Catchpole, Sargentson being replaced by Zach O'Neill, and former Cradle of Filth member John Pyers joining on lead guitar. In 2001 the band signed to Candlelight and released their fourth full-length album Being in Nothing. The band also played a fourth session for BBC Radio 1 in February 2001 and continued to tour around Europe, including a slot on the main stage at Wacken Open Air in 2003. Ever struggling with lineup problems, Paul Woody Woodfield took over on lead guitar for studio and live duties in early 2001, while Stafford Glover took over on bass and Desecration's Ollie Jones was added to the line-up as permanent second guitarist. In early 2006 Phil Vane once again returned to the band after living in Switzerland for 6.5 years. Zach O'Neill also left the band to be replaced by Mike Aurihan. In 2007 he toured the US with grindcore band Phobia and released a split recording with Driller Killer through French label Osmose. The following year the band released a split 7-inch with Trap Them to coincide with their joint US West Coast Distortion tour, which culminated at the 2008 Los Angeles Murder Fest. In amongst playing shows worldwide including Indonesia, Russia, Hungary, Slovenia, Romania, Finland, Germany, Estonia, and at the Obscene Extreme Festival in the Czech Republic, ENT recorded their next album Law of Retaliation, which was released in early 2009 by Osmose in Europe, MCR Company in Japan and Deep Six Records in the US. Terrorizer described it as a rabid, intense, and gleeful return to explosive, hyper-speed hardcore punk insanity. The band continued to tour with shows throughout 2009 in Europe and a third Japanese tour, this time with Slang.